Hello, and welcome to a little bit of a different episode of Brit and Poland. Okay, this video is going to go a bit off topic. It's going to be a bit personal, but it's a video I've been thinking about doing for a while. And one thing I'll say is, lately I've been following, the Heard versus Depp trial, looking at Will Smith, Harry and Meghan, and it's a very divisive subject, but I wanted to kind of touch on the fact that women aren't always the victims of an abusive relationship. And a lot of people say, well, okay, there's got to be something on both sides for something to happen, and that may well be true in many circumstances. But I wanted to share with you some of my own stories. But before I do, I would like to highlight one channel. It's called Knowing the Narcissist by H.G. Tudor. I think he's British. And he's a self-confessed narcissist. If you don't know what a narcissist is, I sincerely recommend you Google the term. But it is a psychological disorder, and it's up there with sociopaths, psychopaths. It's kind of a milder form, but nonetheless still a dangerous form of psychological disorder. And Tudor, I've just watched 10 of his videos about the whole Depp Amber Heard thing. And admittedly, he's focused very much on Amber Heard, talking about her history, her background, the incidents, all the allegations, her other relationships, all of this, and he's painting this picture, basically. Now, this guy, he is, as I say, like a self-confessed narcissist, and so he's not necessarily what you call a good person, but he is very educational, and he has taught me a lot. And a few years ago, actually, around about the time I started this channel, maybe a few months prior, I ended up doing a lot of research on, shall we say, abnormal personality types. And the reason I did this is because I, at the time, was a victim of a relationship that went badly. It was not my first and it was not my worst case, but nonetheless it did kind of hurt me a great deal. It did cause me a lot of psychological damage. I went to therapy. I had countless counsel by friends, and I was not in a good place. I didn't eat properly for about 3 months. Maybe if you've watched some of my earlier videos, I may have alluded to some of this. But I wanted to kind of share with you my stories to show that in this world, as a guy, as a man, you can be a victim as well. So, okay, a little bit embarrassing, but I was a bit of a late bloomer in terms of relationships. I didn't really start relationships until my kind of early to mid-20s. I was very shy, very insecure, didn't really have a lot of kind of belief in myself. And yeah, I don't really know where it came from, but I was very insular when I was a kid. I would stay in, play computer games rather than go out and play football. My interests were very specific, not really shared by my peers. I was a different person, but I wasn't afraid to be different. But of course this made me unpopular, and you know what it's like to be the unpopular kid at school. If you do, then you can associate. It kind of damages your self-esteem, and you're made to think that you're kind of less than other people. As you grow older, make better friends, have real life experiences and grow, you get past that phase. With relationships, you get past that phase. But anyway, that sets a bit of the backdrop. So it wasn't my first relationship, but let's say it was probably my first semi-serious relationship. I was dating this girl. I met her on Match.com. I'm not going to name names or anything like that. This video is not about blaming people or attacking people. It's about my experiences. This girl I dated for about 3 months, and I don't know what it was, but from an early stage I just had this knot in my stomach. I just assumed I was being nervous, but I had a hard time feeling comfortable in her presence. I couldn't really eat. I was always kind of a little bit on edge, and as I say, I attributed that to nerves. But she would become, like she would drink, much like what I've been hearing about Amber Heard. And when she would drink, she would become very aggressive. It would start off verbally. She would be very insulting. She would be very kind of demeaning. But it would also extend to some physical violence. So like, punching me in the arm or kind of slapping me, that kind of thing. I mean, nothing that left a mark or caused me any serious injury, but it was a surprise, and I just didn't really know how to deal with that. But, I was new to relationships, so I didn't really know what was normal and what was not normal. So I carried on. And, I introduced her to my friends. And that's when it got worse, because she then started to tell me which of my friends we could hang out with, which ones she didn't like. And ultimately she was trying to control my friendship group. And at that time, I'd obviously known my friends a lot longer than this girl, and I had to just call it quits. There was a certain incident where we went to my friend's house and she started insulting, the house, insulting the furniture, whatever. I wasn't in the room when this happened, but yeah, by all accounts, my friend was very offended. And she made some negative remarks about other friends in this situation, and after that I had to end it. It just wasn't going to work out. Somebody who would treat my friends that way, I'm sorry, it's just not compatible. I wasn't happy anyway, so we just went our own ways, didn't see each other again. I think she tried to add me on Facebook like a few months ago or something like that, out of the blue. I ignored it. I wasn't going to get involved. So that was my first relationship, and this girl had admitted that she tried to kill a previous boyfriend. I forget the exact story behind that one, probably for the best. But she would say, I would say, be put in a kind of psychopathic type of area. The second relationship I had after this one went on for 2 years, and when I was listening about the stories of Heard and Depp, I was getting all these flashbacks, and like, oh my God, there were so many parallels, with this relationship that I don't know, I just felt compelled to record this video to talk about it. So when we met on a website called Plenty of Fish. Back in the day, she had a somewhat mysterious profile, which I was intrigued by. We met up. She was very shy, seemed to be a very nice girl. We had a lot of common interests, mainly kind of geeky things like Batman and comics and, that kind of thing. So, we had some stuff to talk about. She was attractive, we got on well. At the end of the date, like by message, she was like, oh, I'm not sure we're quite, compatible. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It's a shame. I quite liked you. And she was like, really? And then we kind of progressed. And I was trying to kind of give her encouragement, trying to break her out of her shell, because as I said, she had a lot of kind of negative self-issues. She hinted at all these things that had happened in the past in previous relationships where she'd been like subject to physical abuse and emotional abuse and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, how horrible that you had to go through all of this. And then she revealed other things like, oh, I may have taken some money from this guy. I may have like damaged his clothing and stuff like that. And I was like, wow. Okay, but maybe it was just revenge. Okay, if I'm good to her, maybe this won't happen. And the relationship was good, I'd say, for the first few months. We were actively out together, drinking together. She was getting on with my friends. It was going well, so it was all pretty decent, pretty standard. I met her family, she met my family. We were living at home at the time. But then things started to take a turn. Now, I'll be completely honest, this is many, many years ago. So I don't remember play for play every event that happened in what order they happened. But one thing that would happen is, she wanted me to talk on the phone a lot. So pretty much every night she would ring up and she would want to talk for, say, 2 or 3 hours on the phone. I had friends I was talking to the phone, so I was kind of used to that. There were times I wanted to just play games or watch a film or something like that, but you kind of put a relationship first, right? And we would talk, and then there would be times where she would become like aggressive over the phone. So she would start insulting me, she would start accusing me of things, and I was very, very confused and very hurt by some of the things. And at first I was just kind of taking it. As the relationship progressed, I would become more and more agitated, and I would shout back and I would accuse her of things, and it kind of spiraled. But this is the thing, in these kinds of toxic or abusive relationships, the person who is the victim ends up being kind of transformed into the person they're a victim of, and they end up fighting back. But yeah, okay, if it was just some abuse over the phone, that would be one thing, but there were other things. So it would turn out that she was sending messages to my friends and family, very insulting messages. Sometimes she had like a fake Facebook account, and she was trying to pretend to be me when she was sending these malicious messages. So she was trying to drive this kind of wedge between me, my family, my friends, even like other people that weren't even in the country that I was just having some kind of communication with. There was all this kind of thing going on. I was like, oh my God. And of course, my friends were like, man, this is not good. We're not going to tell you what to do, but you should really think about whether you want to stay with this. And like my parents were the same. They were like, we support you in your decisions, but I don't think this person is good for you, and you should think about this. And this person makes me upset. And, and I was very close with my family, and I didn't want them to be upset. But the problem is when you're in a relationship and you feel like you love someone and you want to help them. And I kind of fell into this spiral where these activities would continue, and they would get worse and worse. But I kept defending her. I kept trying to explain her away. I thought if I showed her enough love and affection, that she would heal. I was trying to encourage her to go get some therapy. I even sought out some agencies. That just made her angry. She said, there's nothing wrong with me, there's something wrong with you, you should get therapy. Deflection. It kind of intensified. At one point she started to she would go through my phone when I slept, so she obviously looked over my shoulder when I was putting my password in, and she was even sending messages to my exes pretending to be me, and at one point I had the police call me up to cease and desist, do not contact this person again, or else you will be in trouble. And I was like, oh my God, I tried to explain, listen, sorry, it wasn't me, blah blah. It all went dead. But it was, I've never been in trouble with the police before. The thing that really freaked me out was when I noticed that she started to use my debit card, and she would be using this to order, say, clothing for herself online without my permission. So I was frequently cancelling my cards, getting the bank to send new ones, but it would just continue. When I was asleep, obviously she was writing down my card numbers and things like that. The cycle continued. And that's the thing, there were so many things that happened, but these are some of the highlights, right? She was never like physically abusive, but you could feel it was almost on the verge. And she would throw all these tantrums. She would, every time I was like with friends, she would ring me up incessantly. She would text me incessantly, like, you know, needing to speak to me. It got to a point where I just tried to ignore it, and then she would ring my friends and stuff, and it just became obsessive. And I would try to end the relationship a few times, and each time, you know, she would cry, she would threaten to, you know, harm herself, and you know, there would be times like it would be in the middle of the night, she would get a taxi to mine, and you know, basically, you know, show up at my front door and demand to speak to me, and then, you know, we always kind of made up, and you know, things would calm for a while, then the cycle would start again. And I was noticeably getting more irritated, more angry with her as time went by, as more and more things kept happening, and the situation kept getting worse and worse. And I was like, I don't know what to do. You know, I tried to consult some people, but they were like, well, she can only get help if she seeks help. But anyway, sorry, jabbering on. Eventually, one Halloween night, things did come to an end. So basically, we went out. I was dressed as like Jack Nicholson style Joker. He was always one of my favorite Jokers from the Batman series. And she went as the kind of modern style Harley Quinn from like the Suicide Squad film. And, you know, we went around in Oxford. We had a few drinks with friends and things. And, you know, it was, you know, a fun night. We got quite drunk. We got back to her place. I was staying at hers. Her family was away on holiday. And she wanted to be intimate, but I was, well, guys, you can probably associate, you know, when you've had a certain amount to drink, you're not really in a state to be intimate. So I had to decline and say, sorry, I just want to go to sleep. During the night, I slept well, but then the next morning, I noticed my phone wasn't working. I was like, oh, is it just out of charge? Then I like opened the case and I was like, oh, it was a bit wet. And I, you know, come to realize that basically at some point in the night, I don't know what she had done, but I think she'd maybe put it down the toilet or let it soak in the sink, or God knows what was happening. And yeah, so my phone was ruined. We tried putting it in rice and things like that, didn't help. And this is an iPhone, so not the cheapest thing in the world. We went to Reading the next day to do a bit of shopping. I, you know, went to the store and like got a new phone, and you know, they explained there was nothing I could really do in terms of reclaiming the money. I just had to buy the new phone on the existing package, etc. And then something else happened. So I hadn't had my phone for a couple of days, and then when I got it back and when I got it set up, I got some messages from my family. So my sister-in-law was pregnant at the time with my first niece, and this girl had basically sent a message to her saying, I hope you have a miscarriage. And of course my brother was furious, my sister-in-law was distraught, my parents were furious, and this was the point where I said enough is enough, and I ended things. I got my stuff, drove back to my house, stopped answering her phone calls, all of this. And this is the point where she overdosed. She had some sleeping pills that she bought online from some online pharmacy, and she took a large number of these pills. Her parents came home and they found her in a very kind of inebriated state, and they were like, what's wrong? And she told them what had happened, and they rushed her to hospital, and she, you know, thank God she was okay. I didn't exactly need to have her death on my hands. And, you know, she would try to, you know, get in contact with me. She would reach out to my family. She was apologizing to my family, sending like long, heartfelt messages. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But for me, I finally said, I can't do this anymore. I kind of said we could be friends. But yeah. And that was the end of that. So, I mean, she tried to get in contact with me a couple of years ago via Facebook. I mean, I blocked her, but I guess she started up a new account and she was sending me these messages. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I've moved to Poland. So I can't really see you. And now my parents don't even live in Oxford. So I think the chances of me ever running into her again are pretty much zero. But you never know. But hopefully not. So fast forward to Poland, and you know, I had a couple of brief relationships, but you know, things that just didn't work out. You know, I was like trying to meet people here, and I saw one girl from Silesia. She was a lovely girl, but we just weren't compatible. You know, we dated for a few months, but there wasn't quite that spark. You know, so. No harm done. Dated somebody else, and it was a bit passionate and things, but ultimately she went off with someone else. And it was kind of tough for me. And then eventually I had this relationship with a colleague at work, and it was only brief, really, 3 months, but at the time I thought I had met someone who was my soulmate, okay, so this I don't want to go into too much detail about, because this is someone who I still see in the office. Thank God I'm changing company soon. And we have friends in common, so it's not really fair to talk about that. But what I can talk about is what happened to me. So after this relationship ended, I was a bit crushed, you know. Like I thought I'd finally met my perfect match, and this is what triggered me to do the research to understand, because there were certain behaviors which I couldn't explain. I was like, why would anyone act like that? Why would anyone, you know, treat me that way? So I, you know, did the research. I did the work, as a lot of these kind of coaches and psychologists say. So I watched hundreds, if not thousands of hours of videos about relationships, and then as I was learning about that, I learned about kind of abnormal personalities. So I got on to things about like narcissism, which I'd never really heard of before. I mean, everyone's heard of psychopaths, sociopaths, you know, you see plenty of films and TV series about them, but you don't really see much about narcissists. And even some therapists and psychologists maybe don't even recognize this as an official term. It's an interesting thing. But what I will say, for anyone who has been like in a very confusing relationship and they don't really understand what's gone on, it's worth to investigate. I watched a lot of videos, and of course there wasn't one video that answered everything. I had to dig around, and it's like, okay, this video talks about this behavior, this video talks about that behavior, and eventually, you know, I was very much like reluctant to put labels on people. I'm not a psychologist, but by the end of watching all of this material, reading books, going to therapy myself, I kind of felt like a bit of an amateur psychologist, to be honest. To this day, I kind of feel a bit more guarded. So there is a kind of like, I don't know, let's just say it, a bit of chainmail or something over my emotions and over my heart, because before I was a very open person and with feelings that could be dangerous, and people would warn me about this and I didn't know what they meant, and now I do. So you do have to protect yourself, especially the early stages of relationships. So I kind of go into most relationships now with an open mind. I don't prejudge people, but there's always part of me that's slightly on edge. I kind of look for signs of potentially toxic behavior, because to be honest, at the beginning of relationships, things can be perfectly normal, they can seem perfectly brilliant, perfectly wonderful, but then little things creep in. And the thing with a lot of these people is they have what we call a mask. You know, they have this separate identity that they project to you and to the world. They make you think that they like everything you like, and you know, that like you have the same belief systems and everything is the same, you know, and they mirror you basically. And so you kind of think, oh, I found this, you know, perfect other half, like someone who's just like me, like, wow, what are the odds? And then the mask starts to crack or starts to fall, however you want to put it, and they will criticize you, they will make you feel small, they will want to exert control over you. Inevitably they can dismiss you or whatever. There are so many different steps to it, and this is not what this video is about. What this video is about is, you know, in relationships, abuse is not one-sided. It can come from either side. You know, it's not just men that abuse women. Women are very, very capable of abusing men, albeit more in a psychological way rather than, you know, a physical way. I mean, I'd say it's a rarer circumstance to hear about guys who are getting hit or getting physically assaulted. Not to say it doesn't happen, but it's rarer, right? Typically, you hear more about men beating up women because obviously men are physically stronger. You know, this is just a scientific thing. And men tend to, you know, be more aggressive with testosterone and things in the system. And also, it's easier to prove. And this is a key thing. It's easy to prove when somebody's been assaulted, or easier, shall we say. It's not always plain and simple. But this is why men get labeled in this way, because their actions are more overt, they're more visible. And so a lot of people, when they hear about cases like Johnny Depp, and they instantly assume that he must have been the bad guy in some way, shape or form, I want you to start thinking, does he have to be? I'm not saying he was completely innocent, by the way. I don't know. I obviously wasn't there watching the relationship, but from the research I've done and the stuff I've read, to me, he sounds like a victim. But obviously more stuff could come out. There are certain allegations against him as well. So I'm not saying that he's completely innocent, but my inclination is that he is. Well, at least the less guilty party, I would say. So you could say I'm Team Johnny because I've been through what he's been through in many ways. Okay, I didn't have my finger cut off, and okay, nobody took a shit in my bed, but this second relationship, I can tell you she at least thoroughly farted in my bed at one point, which I was very disturbed to come back to. Thankfully, there was no physical turd right there in the sheets. But yeah. But why am I talking about this? I just felt I needed to. I think more men should feel free to speak out and say that they've been a victim at some point of their lives. And I'm, you know, actively trying to find a healthy and positive relationship, and it's easier said than done. The universe puts interesting people in your path, but I still hope to find someone, hope to find the right person for me. But don't worry, this is like a one-off video. Don't think that the rest of my videos are going to be like me going on about my life, about my personal issues. This weekend, I'm taking advantage of my Uvka, so after my friend Piotr's birthday, I'm going to be going back to Kielce for a couple of days to try and capture the footage that I missed the first time round there. And I really love Kielce, by the way. So as much as people in Poland try to dismiss this city, I think it's great. So I really hope to show off the wonderful side to that. I've also, maybe this has been a bit an expensive try, but it's what I'm trying to get to, is I'm trying to produce this video about the bars in Warsaw. So I've been going to lots of places, getting lots of footage. Of course, I drink in every bar I show, hence why it's not the cheapest thing. despite it being cheaper to drink in Poland. It's when you're on a Polish salary, it doesn't mean it's affordable to keep doing it. But I'm almost there. I think another 4 or 5 bars, I'll have enough, and I'll be able to show you some of the best places you can go to in Warsaw. So do look forward to that. It'd be great for locals, tourists, and expats like me alike. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that this has been interesting, enlightening, or whatever. Perhaps you've learned, but honestly, if you've resonated with what has happened in this video, let me know in the comments if you want some more recommendations. There are a lot of good channels on YouTube out there. Dr. Ramani, for example, is another really good one to talk about people with narcissistic personality disorder. But for sure, I can put some recommendations in the comments. So if you have questions, ask away. I'm not going to reveal names or places necessarily where things happened. But if you want to know more, I'm quite open. And I've dealt with all of this stuff. I've had the therapy. I have a friend who is kind of well, she used to be a therapist, and she's helped me address a lot of things in me as well. Because I'm not perfect either. I'm certainly not an abuser, but I'm, I'm not perfect. But I've been working on myself a lot over the last few years, and will continue to do so. But anyway, I'm rambling on and on and on. Thank you again very much for watching. Please stay tuned, and more videos coming soon. Do zobaczenia.